to light my way. I want to give out, I want to give in. This is our crime, this is our sin. But I still believe, I still believe. Through the pain and through the grief, through the heartache, through the tears, through the waiting, through the years. For people like us, in places like this, we need all the hope that we can get. Oh, I still believe.
We're here on the scene with Terry Stewart, one of the leaders of the group that wants to save Darby Creek. Darby Creek is this magnificent stretch of land west of Columbus out around Plain City. Terry, can you tell us a little about what's going on there and what the public needs to do in order to save this amazing wildlife or proposed wildlife refuge?
There's a wildlife refuge being proposed for just west of Columbus, almost just 20 minutes from downtown. And it's going to be a very important thing for Central Ohio because it's going to give a character to Central Ohio that we presently do not have, a reputation of having an ecological mindset, of having a place where we can go to in Central Ohio and see wilderness potentially. It's going to be something very unique for Central Ohio. It's called the Darby Creek National Wildlife Refuge, potentially up to 50,000 acres developed specifically for wildlife, returning a native ecosystem to Central Ohio that hasn't been here for at least 150 years.
Now, this is an area, it's around Plain City, pretty much, and right now it's in total soybeans and corn. Basically, atrazine and Roundup is what we're growing out there. And the feds, finally, some of our federal tax dollars is not going to go bombers. If they want, the feds want to go in there and buy from willing buyers land that they want to return to the wilderness. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Can you describe what the plan would look like if we get this land turned back?
Yes, that's exactly right. Federal government would buy this land from willing sellers only and develop other potential beneficial relationships with those landowners, not necessarily just buying their property, but also entering into other agreements with them, such as conservation easements, or buying their development rights, various options that are not currently available to those landowners right now. And also, with this, we will be able to protect this area from potential encroachment by suburban sprawl, and also leave us with something that we haven't really seen here, which is a native prairie ecosystem, which is something that is more associated with the western states, but actually 150 years ago was actually right here in Central Ohio.
Right, Central Ohio, there were thousands of square miles, literally thousands of square miles of prairie land here. There were buffalo here all the way up to the east coast of the west side of the Allegheny Mountains, and I've seen, and Terry's more familiar with it, but I've seen small patches that are barely left of what the prairie used to look like. It's incredibly beautiful, tremendous, infinite numbers of wildflowers, herbs, trees. There's actually a graveyard out there with 300-year-old trees. All that's pretty much left of the prairie, as far as we can see, is two graveyards and some power line easements. Is basically it. And then you see hummingbirds. You see amazing wildlife there.
Yes, the wildlife that we see in just these small quarter-and-a-half-acre prairies is just a small indication of what we really would see in a larger landscape. Although you'll get back you can retain some of the flowers and maybe a couple of the bird species in these small scapes, but when you enlarge that landscape and bring that prairie up to its full natural size, you would see a lot more diversity come in. There's a lot of bird species that we currently don't have in Central Ohio, specifically because this prairie is no longer here. It may get as exotic as a greater prairie chicken, which is a small chicken-sized bird that is known for its great booming mating calls that it has, possibly needs as much as 5,000 acres for it to be able to return. And so this is a possibility to return some of these very unique and interesting creatures to Central Ohio.
Hi, Bob Fitrakis. I'm here with Terry Stewart of the Darby Creek Association. He's a trustee, also a volunteer naturalist. He's going to tell us a little about the proposal for the Little Darby National Wildlife Refuge. Essentially, we're in a prairie refuge of sorts, but it's awful small.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's right, Bob. Originally, this prairie that we're standing in, which is roughly a quarter acre right here, which we owe this prairie to those that have died before us, is a cemetery, and that's why this prairie is still here, as this was sacred ground. But originally, this prairie would have extended on almost to the horizon. Consider there's possibly 10,000 acres associated with this plot. From that 10,000 acres, we now have roughly a quarter of an acre. When we lost that large amount of grassland, we also lost all the wildlife that went along with that, the birds, all kinds of interesting things that we really don't have a chance to see anymore because they were gone when the prairie left. This is just a small remnant that can be used to expand off into other areas and to make these areas larger.
Now, how large do they want to make this Little Darby refuge?
Well, the planning area now is about 46,000 acres. Half of it would be restored back to native habitat, including prairie, wetlands, riparian forest, oak savanna, that kind of thing. It's important that we do this because the fact that all those species that would have normally been here no longer have a home in central Ohio, or in most of Ohio in general. The grasslands the farmers have found out produce the most fertile farm ground. And so it's become economical for them to till the ground, till the prairies to put farming on. If we don't have a government initiative to buy some of the land back on a willing seller basis from the farmers, we will never see our heritage ever again.
Well, what kind of species are there? Anyone in particular the viewers might have heard of?
Well, there's some, the neotropical birds, or the grassland birds in particular, kind of have strange names, and because they're strange to us, because we've just never seen them before. Things like dick sickle, bobolink, Virginia rail, Henslow sparrows, LeConte sparrows, Savannah sparrows. A lot of these birds require large acreages in order to survive. One interesting bird called the greater prairie chicken, which about this size, chicken-like, had an incredible booming call during its mating season, said you could hear it from a mile away. That used to be in the area, and some say it requires 5,000 acres of grassland in order for that particular species to survive. So that's just some of the things that you would see. A lot of the things, the insects in the area, butterflies. We know that there's about 37 species of butterflies out in this area. It's one of the highest populations of butterflies in the area, or diversity is here, is because of these rare plants. These prairie plants have a unique situation where they're the host for interesting butterflies, and then those butterflies eat these plants, and we have something interesting to look at and appreciate. So it's a very complex thing. When you bring back prairies, you have absolutely no idea what will come back in, because once you start having things like wetlands and these diverse habitats, you may have something fly over and stop in on you like a federally endangered sandhill crane. I mean, they may just fly in, even though federally endangered, they tend to fly in flocks, large flocks, and they'll just fly in and be a whole massive sandhill cranes out here, potentially.
How can people get involved? Is there a number they can call or to get involved with the Darby Creek Association?
Yes, we have a website at www.darbycreeks.org. You can look us up there. We are trying to get the word out to Governor Taft that this is an important thing for Ohio and that he should support it. So if you want to write or call your governor and tell him to support this initiative, that would be a very beneficial thing. We also have petitions that we're signing. So give us a call, which you can find the number at our website. platform, and hope you will support this. It'll be a very unique thing for Central Ohio. We have a very unique opportunity to bring back our natural heritage. You don't get that opportunity very often.
Okay, so if you want to bring back a little natural habitat, if you're sick of all the asphalt and the fast food and want to see what Ohio really look like and enjoy that natural habitat, get a hold of the Darby Creek Association. Again, www.darbycreek.org.
DarbyCreeks.org.
DarbyCreeks with an S.org. Thanks, Darren.
Thank you, Bob. It might be Shropshire or Cooper's or something like that.
It's big for Cooper's.
It's not a red-tail hawk.
No,
definitely
it's not a red-tail
hawk.
No.
Okay, since everybody's here, look, this is Smith Cemetery. One of the last two main examples of prairie in Central Ohio. We'll see both of those examples today on this tour. This is reserved because of the fact that it was a cemetery. The Pioneer Cemetery, the people that lived in this area in the early 1800s died, and as their legacy, they left us this prairie. This prairie would have extended probably to the ends of the horizon, or mostly in this area, but now represents roughly this quarter of an acre, because they found out that this the prairie created such fertile soil that it was worth much more to them as agricultural land than it was as grasslands. And so this is what we have today. We'll see some examples of what you would see in our native prairie. Some things, very beautiful flowers that are well adapted. Now this is because of the way it's been managed. There's a variety of things in here that may not necessarily have been in the prairie. You've got some edge habitat here with the cornfield being so closely situated to this that you see some things that you would not see probably in a prairie. For instance, goldenrod may not have been a prairie species, although native to Ohio may not have been in the prairies for that most part. These are fine prairie species here. Can't remember exactly what the names of these were, but these are fine prairie species right here. The black-eyed Susan is a prairie species, which is kind of nice to know. Some things, like these white things, were not. So it's kind of hard to tell. These are the Queen's Anslace, which are a weed to everyone, including a weed in the prairie. So unfortunately, there are weeds in these prairies, but for the most part, the native prairie is here. These flowers, the ox-eyes. Looking for a nice example of the blue stem. This is big blue stem right here, which is here's a better sample of the big blue stem right here. Big blue stem was also called turkey foot because of the heads. You see, it's got these three heads on it. And that looks like a turkey foot. So this was the main grass of the prairies, and you'll see that here. You'll have a big blue stem, little blue stem, prairie drop seed, cordgrass. Those are all varieties of grass that you'd find in the prairie. The prairie consists primarily of grasses, but also has these forbs, or these flowers, which are interspersed amongst the prairie grasses. This is what the buffalo. This is as they call buffalo candy. The buffalo, bison, love this type of habitat. We've also found elks originally in this kind of habitat. Again, some more big blue stem. Yellow flowers. Some of the things, we're kind of at the end of the season. This is late August. And at this time of the year, some of the flowers have already kind of passed on. You would have seen purple goldenrod. There's a flower. This is a legume, a native legume. This is called baptisia. And this is nice big bean pods basically on these. This is a legume and has nodules on it just like, and puts fertilizer back into the soil. Oh, okay. Here we go. Here's the native purple coneflower. Purple coneflower right here. This is the same flower that is in our medicinal called echinacea. So if you drink echinacea tea, you're drinking the part of that plant there. It's actually quite a medicinal plant. One of the first plants to actually get sent back from the New World back to the Old World because of its beauty and because of its various properties that it had. 1930s, this was the most prescribed medicine in the United States, and as some of us know, it's making a comeback now. So this is upland right here. Actually, if you take a look, typically cemeteries were put on the highest point of ground, and that's true with both this one and the other one that we'll see today. However, these prairies are unreasonably high. And that is not because this land was so much higher, it's because that land out in the cornfield is now so much lower. Between compaction and erosion, the surrounding area is now considered possibly a foot lower than it was originally. This is really beautiful. I mean, look at these oak trees, individual. This is very much how it probably would have looked when the pioneers got here. You would have seen these large trees on the horizon, individuals like this, with the prairie grasses going up to them, basically something like this, for as far as you can see. Have these open spaces full of grass, but then you'd have these individual oaks standing out amongst that. Oak savanna. This is a Big Oak Cemetery. This is also a nature preserve. Again, managed. I believe it's still township property, but it's managed by the Department of Natural Resources. This one has been managed a little bit longer. This was in 1978 when they started managing this one, whereas the other one didn't start getting managed until the 80s. This one was unrecognized. Both of these actually were fairly unrecognized as being prairie for quite some time, up until the late 70s. These were just very weedy. They were suppressed. A lot of this vegetation you see here now was not allowed to either grow, or it was either so suppressed by mats of vegetation on top of it that you would not have been able to see this back 20 years ago because they were not managing it properly. But when DNR started managing it as a prairie, started coming in and burning it and getting rid of the excess vegetation that was here, then the prairie finally started coming back. And we'll see a fine sample prairie right here. The species here is called a prairie dock. Nice tall stem, yellow flowers. When you see a prairie dock, it has these nice, almost elephant-like leaves on it. You shake hands with this creature right here, and that's how you do this. You come up and you do this with it, and what you'll find out is that one side of your hand will be about 5 degrees cooler than the other, because this is the way this plant survives. It's going through some sort of a respiratory process where it's giving off water, and that's a cooling process. And so the inside of this leaf is about 5 degrees typically cooler than the outside of the leaf. Again, another example of an interesting. This looks like almost like a fire beetle. Never seen one with black wings before. You just never know what you're going to find out here. I've seen samples of when they returned prairie and wetlands to an area where you'll get things like something flying over like a sandhill crane, which is a federally endangered species.
Oh, 1819. Oh, God, almost 20 years.
Hi, I'm Paul Dumichel. I'm with Darby Creek Association, and we're standing right next to Little Darby Creek in what could be a wildlife refuge in the near future if the Federal Fish and Wildlife Service plan is approved. I think this is this is a piece of trash I picked up. We're right underneath a covered bridge out here in Union County. The footage that you may have just seen of the creek really shows the beauty of it. It's a lot of the reason I'm involved in trying to protect it. It's an extremely beautiful creek. It runs clear almost all year. If you're at all familiar with the way creeks and rivers typically look in Ohio, they're usually muddy, full of sediment. That makes it hard for wildlife to live. Little Darby Creek runs clear almost all the time, and even today you can see little fish swimming around it. It's late August right now, so the water level is quite low, but there's still a lot of wildlife in there, and it's a very special place. Just across the creek here, we have a farmer who's very active in the opposition against the refuge, and one of the reasons that a lot of people are against it is because they're afraid of change. They're afraid of what might happen if this becomes a refuge. And basically, it really is just fear of change. People don't want to see things change, but the fact of the matter is they're going to change. Everything always does. That's just the way life is. So what we're trying to talk about is the way change is going to take place. Is it going to be change for the kind of development that we've seen throughout central Ohio again and again, of more pavement, more sprawl development, or is it going to be change for the better, actually a restoration of this habitat to be something even better than it is today? And it can be better than today. Don't think that it's fantastic and there's nothing wrong. Just across the creek here we have a ford where the farmer drives his equipment right through the creek, and I'll bet you $1 to a donut that equipment leaks oil and has other problems associated with it. Definitely stirs up sediment and destroys habitat. So that's one of the things that you need to think about, is that what's going on out here today isn't necessarily all happiness and joy. There are things that are impacting the creek. The farmers are impacting the creek, some of them definitely. And that's a lot of the reason that they're just opposed. They don't want things to change, but they are going to change, and we want it to change for the better.
What we're really thinking about is literally thousands of acres that the feds could buy and return it to prairie land. And the farm people out there, the agricultural interests, are talking about how they're farming and raising food, but in fact it's really a desert out there. You have thousands and thousands of acres of corn and soybeans, which don't go to feed people, but they go to feed beef and hogs and some chickens, and basically the two main crops being grown in this area are cholesterol and chemical runoffs. And we really need to turn this land back to some sort of natural state. And really the choice now is between chemical farming and sprawl, because if none of these farmers are going to withstand the large bids of the developers who are going out there. With us now we also have Paul Dumichel, who's working on the wildlife refuge. Paul, take center stage here. We've been talking about it. Can you tell us a little bit about what the federal government wants to do and the process that's involved?
All right, well, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has proposed a 50,000-acre wildlife refuge for the watershed of the Darby Creeks, and we feel it's very important because that is the biggest opportunity to restore a natural habitat for the Darby Creeks. It's the biggest restoration project that's ever going to happen in this watershed.
And the political lineup is pretty oppressive in a lot of ways. The Farm Bureau has decided that they don't want to give a single square inch of land from the kind of farming they're doing. Apparently they would prefer to have Walmart next to their farms than to have wildlife. And really the feds in this case are doing the right thing. They're not coming in with eminent domain. Is that correct, Paul?
That's correct. All land would be purchased by willing sellers, or they'd be sold by willing sellers. So really what we want to do is give the landowners the opportunity to sell to the federal government, and they can then enhance the quality of the land that they've been living on.
And conversely, the argument against the wildlife refuge is that the farmers and the development interests who are really behind all this don't want to allow people to have the option to sell the farm to the federal government, which is pretty outrageous. So we want people in Central Ohio, and we're being told politically that Governor Taft has a lot to say about this, that if the Republican Party will, I ironically, this is being pushed in Congress by Mike DeWine. So if Governor Taft will come around and support it, we think we'll get a lot further along.
Well, it looks like we've got another battle here, another important struggle. Viewers of this show knows we've won in the past, as Harvey often reminds you, on Pickerington Ponds, on the Morris Bethel issue, on the arena, and I think we will win this struggle as well.
So listen.
Somewhere inside my soul there is an echo of my youth. Some pretty little say that contains a grain of truth. Patience is a virtue, persistence is its mark. It's better light a candle than stand and curse the dark. But if we stand together, we can turn this world around. Hold your ground. In the corridors of power where our voices seldom heard, the status quo is what they want, and they get it with a word. For us it takes 1,000 voices, 1,000,000 angry shouts to notify the ship of state to bring its course about. But if we pull together, we can turn this ship around. Hold your ground. Oh, this world is changing, spinning out through space and time. Oh, it's rearranging all the things you thought were yours and mine. We've got to hold our ground. Hold our ground. Hold our ground. We've got to hold our ground. Sometimes it seems the motion is strictly retrograde. There are so many reverses in advances that you've made. The things you thought were changing have shuddered to a halt. The only view is forward when your back's against the wall. But if we stand together, we might turn this world around. Hold your ground. It isn't for the faint.
Hello,